The Common Council meeting for December 13th, 2011. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Interesting.
Fernsler. Here. Riley.
Present.
Fowler.
Here.
Anderson.
Present.
Hanson.
Present.
Jarvis. Here. Sedlacek.
Present.
Lottie.
Here.
Before we start tonight, I would like to recognize the Cub Scouts from Pack 3874. They're here to learn about government and how it works and about the U.S. flag and the care for it. And they will be leading us tonight in the Pledge of Allegiance as part of their badge work for citizenship and their pins. So we appreciate 3874 for being here. And with that, we'll please stand for the pledge. And boys, why don't you come up along the south wall, please. All the way up to the front. And you get to use your outside voice. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. That's the first and last time to get to use her outside voice inside. Very good. Thank you, Boy Scouts, or Cub Scouts. Next item on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting held November 29, 2011. The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Alder Anderson.
Second. Alderman Riley.
We have a first and a second to approve the minutes of the November 29, 2011 meeting. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item is the audience portion where citizens can come forward, sign in, and be recognized by the chair. This is where you get to talk and we get to listen. And tonight, Bill Immig has signed up. Bill?
Just want to make sure the council knows that with the holidays falling on the weekends, garbage collection remains the same for everybody, so just should be picked up on your normal day. I just want to make sure people know that wrapping paper isn't recycled. That's garbage. They can put their Christmas wreaths out with the trash because they have the metal rings that can't be recycled, but the trees the city does pick up on the curb. So the real trees, not the plastic ones. And the other thing I'd like to mention is that as of December 1st, we all should be parking not on the street overnight. The parking regulations kicked in. And if and when it ever snows, we're going to ask people to make sure they shovel their sidewalks. So I just want to make sure people know about the trash. And thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next item on the agenda is item 5, resolutions. 5A, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Plymouth, Wisconsin, establishing the 2012 compensation for non-union employees and benefit appendix schedule. This is resolution number 25, recommended by the Finance and Personnel Committee on December 5. We will stipulate that it is on file in the clerk's office and is on the city website for review. I'll ask Director Yurs to give us a brief summary, and then the chair will entertain a motion to approve. Director?
On an annual basis, the city establishes a wage resolution for non-union employees. That resolution is in front of you tonight. It's the same resolution, that format that was approved in previous years for the most part. It does follow in line with the union contracts that were approved earlier this year, which provides a 0% change in general. There was a change to the 5 non-represented utility employees, and that for quite some time they have received longevity pay, and that longevity pay has been incorporated into the base salary as recommended by the Finance and Personnel Committee. The other point is that on page 3, it also references the monthly stipend for the utility manager's vehicle for using his personal vehicle. And most of the other things remain the same, except for the pension part. It does acknowledge that non-union employees will begin paying the same pension portions as other employees began paying or will begin paying in January. That's part of this, as well as the fact that no longevity benefit will be paid to any non-union employees except for police lieutenant positions, which has been an ongoing practice for those positions as a result of them being promoted from road officers.
Thank
And
you.
the second resolution, I might as well just touch
Yeah, touch
base
on that right away, too.
The
Thank
second
you.
resolution is the wage adjustment resolution, which basically provides a one-time wage adjustment for the year 2011 for non-union employees. It's basically a make-up or a catch-up for the pension reductions between September of 2011 and December of 2011. And that resolution acknowledges that all non-union employees would begin the pension contributions in January with the union employees, and it would provide a one-time adjustment which would put non-union employees at the same level as union employees for the year 2011. Those funds were previously budgeted and incorporated into the annual budget and was actually part of the 2010 wage resolution for the year 2011.
Thank you. We will act on item A first, 5A, resolution number 25. Chair will entertain a motion to approve as indicated.
So moved, Alderman.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Lottie.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Jarvis. Hanson.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Riley.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on to 5B, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Plymouth, Wisconsin, establishing a wage adjustment for the year 2011 for non-union employees' compensation. Resolution number 26, recommended by the Finance and Personnel Committee on December 5. You heard Director Yurgis comment on that. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Alderman Lottie.
We have a first and a second, also stipulating is on file in the clerk's office and on the city website. You can take your pick, Clerk Huberty. And with that, any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Lottie.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Riley.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on to item C, a resolution in opposition to Assembly Bill 182 regarding removing municipal utilities' ability to collect unpaid utility bills through the property tax system. This is resolution number 27, and I would maybe ask our utility manager, John McKinnon, to briefly summarize that for us, and then the chair will entertain a motion.
Thank you. Good evening. The Assembly Bill 182 would prevent the municipality's ability to ever collect unpaid utility bills through the property tax system. Currently, our practice is, my staff prepares reviews and assists you in preparing a list of such to be written off as delinquent accounts, and you prove those at your monthly meetings. How there is another method that can be used in our toolbox, which is using the property tax system to collect unpaid bills at the end of a year. And some of the municipalities are doing that. What this particular bill would prevent those municipalities, and for us, ever considering using this method in the future. Some of the cities that have already signed on board objecting to and supporting the defeat of Assembly Bill 182, for example, is the city of Madison and the city of Milwaukee. Our associations have joined hands with this. Is the Leagues of Wisconsin Municipalities, which we are a member of, Municipal Electric Utilities of Wisconsin, which we're also a member of that organization. And also, I see on here that the groups recommending denying the passage of the bill is Municipal Environmental Group, which we're also a member of that, and I see WPPI Energy has also gone on record, which we're a member of that as well. Groups that are supporting the bill, the Wisconsin Housing Alliance, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Rental Housing Legislative Council. So there's groups on both sides of the bill, and MUW has asked us to bring it to your attention that you would support in an effort to defeat the bill. So the resolution that will be shared with you shortly will go through some of the details. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Chair will entertain a motion to approve so we can discuss. Alderman Lottie.
Make a motion not to oppose Assembly Bill 182.
We have a motion to not oppose Assembly Bill 182. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second to not oppose Assembly Bill 182. Discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Lottie.
when I look at this bill, if our utility had this option, which our director is telling us, our manager of utilities is telling us the utilities had this option, they could have done this many times instead of giving us a thing of uncollectible accounts. They could have went this route. What this bill does, or what the opposition to this bill does, is makes landlords accountable for their tenants. You put it on a tax roll. So that means the landlord becomes a bill collector for our utility. And what incentive does a renter have to pay his utility bill when he knows there's no ramifications for not doing it? Because if he doesn't do it, it's going to wind up on a tax roll of the property owner. So there's no incentive to pay that bill. You know, and that's what I look at. You know, if you don't have the collection account system like we do now, uncollectible accounts, which means that if the renter doesn't pay the utility bill, it goes to a collection agency and it goes on his record, his credit record. I just don't see where you can say to a tenant, more or less, you don't have to pay your electric bill and you can move and your landlord's going to be stuck with it. And if we've had this bill in effect, if it's there now that the utility can collect on that, why haven't we been doing it? We've all been doing non-collectible accounts. What I'm hearing is this bill is in effect now, that it can be done.
And I can speak to that, Mayor.
Please.
Yes, this is currently an option that a municipality has, is that as opposed to writing these off, you can add them to the tax bill. Of course, as Alderperson Lottie points out, sometimes it's difficult when you have renters. There's some that think, well, the landlord has the ability to contract with that renter, and then if the renter doesn't pay the utility bills, the landlord kicks him out. So there could be some consequences for the renter. But yes, this is currently an option. And if I understand your motion correctly, your motion is to not approve the resolution that your utility manager has
Right, that's my
set
motion.
forth.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, you know,
Go right ahead.
you know, when you take a landlord, for example, and you have a rental property and you include the electrical and water and whatever you include in the rental process, you got no way of knowing what that renter's gonna, how many lights or how much electricity they're gonna use. You know, they just go wild. You know, you can leave the lights on all the time. They don't care. They're responsible for it. It's showing up in their rent. And as a landlord, would I know what to charge my tenants if they're burning the lights all the time? Because I don't see their utility bill. I would get the utility bill coming. It would come to me, but then I would have to go to the renter and say, hey, you're using too much electricity. You got to cut back, you know. It's just, to me, it's just not good for landlords or for people who rent property, you know. And And like I say before, if we've had this option, why haven't we been using it? Why are we going to uncollectible accounts, which we've been doing for years, if this option that was available to us? I don't understand that.
Question.
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, it's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, that this resolution is in opposition to Assembly Bill 182. What Assembly Bill 182 is doing is saying, municipality, we're taking away that option. Just so everyone's clear on, okay.
Right. Somebody
And
bill-
And you don't
Miss-
want us, I'm sorry.
That's right. You're thinking right. Clerk,
Miss-
Director Jurgens.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I guess I just would like to put it on record that I do support this resolution. I agree with the fact that this isn't a tool that we've necessarily used in recent years. However, once this option is gone, it's probably going to be gone for a long period of time, and I'd rather preserve the option to be able to put this on the property tax system. And you're right, we have not done it, but once we lose it, I think we may lose it potentially forever, and this collection process as part of the toolbox will be gone. So I look at it from a collection standpoint. For some municipalities, they have larger balances that go unpaid than others. And for whatever reason, some for historical purposes, there may be different reasons as to why some other municipalities would begin implementing this practice. And it's just something we don't do now, but it doesn't mean that we might not want to in the future. So I would just say that I do support the resolution.
Alderman Fernsler, you had your hand up first.
Yeah, I have a question for John. John, if I have a tenant that I think may not be paying these bills because he hasn't paid rent maybe for a month or two, can I come to the utility and ask what his utility bills are and if they have been paid or not?
If the city has in place a policy of putting the unpaid delinquent bills onto the tax roll, and yes, indeed, you would have the right to know what that unpaid balance is as they occur. The law currently stipulates that when that renter becomes delinquent, we didn't need to notify you as the landlord or that the renter is delinquent. You don't have to tell us. We will tell you that the renter is delinquent. And we'll tell you how much money he is delinquent for. And every month it keeps going forward, we can send you a copy of the bill and what that amount is. And it comes October 1st, is the cutoff line that we have to then abide by and turn over to the city clerk's office. These are all the uncollectible accounts we have, and then the clerk goes through the process of putting it onto a tax bill.
And it will come on my tax bill because I own the property.
Right. But
And suppose I opted not to pay that bill.
just
Now,
like,
I would be delinquent and my credit would go to hell.
yeah, if you don't
Right.
pay your tax
Is that
bill,
not right?
then you lose your.
Okay,
So that's the downside of this.
that's a big downside.
You bet. That's a big
And
downside.
that's why I believe this council has in the past elected not to use this option.
Right.
But again, it doesn't mean in the future you may not want to consider the option. And once the option's gone, you'll never have it back again. So I think sometimes it's good to reserve options for yourself, then let them go by.
Alder Jarvis, then Alder Hanson.
Something that pertains to this particular.
Okay.
so go ahead.
Kiel has a policy that they do collect. The landlord is responsible for the fees. And what they do on that is that they will keep the person's name. Kiel is a smaller community, but they'll keep the person's name and they'll not hook them up unless it's been cleared through the landlord to the utilities. I'm not sure if the Plymouth utilities could do that or not, but so they keep record of that, and if that person pays it then to the landlord, then they will let them be hooked back up. So I don't know if that's the case going to be here or not in it, but the landlord is responsible for it on the tax levy, but the utilities does keep track of it, that this can't hook up, and so there is a record of that particular person.
Are you referring to a different, they move to a different location and try to hook up with the delinquent
In
account?
Kiel, if they go into Kiel, a different residence there.
Right, and that's a different
That
one.
community, correct.
Correct, so that's working with the utility.
But that may be a
If they move out
smaller-
of your flat into another flat,
Correct.
and there's that delinquency that they won't hook them up until they pay the prior bill. Okay,
But-
then Alder Jarvis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alder Lottie, your position on this is, from what I understood, and maybe I'm missing something, but your position, what you were saying, would support a motion in favor of supporting this resolution.
Repealing that, this resolution wants to put us in favor of repealing 180, not repealing 182, keeping 182 out there. This is what this resolution says. We're making if you read it, the common council is saying we support 180, we support keeping 182. And I make, my position is I don't support 182. You know, I don't want the landlords, and again, like Alderman Hanson said, if the utilities, if you live in an apartment, in winter, they can't disconnect you, they can't refuse your electricity, they have to give it to you.
But the resolution is to,
Which
in
paragraph?
right, isn't
Number-
our resolution in
number three, number four.
opposition?
Number 4,
Number
paragraph
4,
four.
because Bill 182 would forever prohibit the city of Plymouth from collecting unpaid municipal electric and water bills. Am I on the right track that this is confusing?
I
I
think
think
the motion was a little confusing.
The motion
The
was
motion
to
isn't-
Not approve.
not approve the
Resolution
resolution.
27.
I think what you're saying is that you do support this resolution.
No,
Because the resolution is in opposition to the bill. It's not in support.
He doesn't want to oppose the bill,
I don't want to oppose the
so
bill.
He wants to
Okay.
take away that
ability,
tool.
that
That-
tool.
Take the tool out of the toolbox.
Take it out.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I don't want to
Alderman Lottie.
I don't want to make the landlord a bill collector for our utility, you know? You're putting a big burden on people who are renting property. They're becoming a landlords. Now, you're putting extra things, sure, I can go to utilities and check it out, or they can inform me. Let's say it's in the middle of winter, and inform me this person hasn't paid his utility bill. Can I kick them out in the middle of winter? I know the utilities can't turn them off, but do I want to kick that person out in the street in the middle of winter? I don't know if I had that option as a landlord. I'd have to really look at that once. What ramification would be coming back as me as a landlord? You know, I don't know. That is my concern, because the utilities cannot shut them off.
Any other comment? Alderman Sislanchek.
I am in favor of this resolution from the standpoint that I'm not saying that I want to do this in Plymouth, but I think that there could be ways to use this to possible, but there would have to be a lot of discussion about it. But I don't believe that that this bill to take this tool away from the communities that are using it, I think that they use it and it's working for them, and the people that are there are working under that system, and I think that it's a possibility at some time the city of Plymouth may want to, in some way, use this tool.
Alderman Lottie.
Again, if I may, Mr. Mayor, you know, if I have a tenant, you know, and he's in there and he's using electricity, and he doesn't pay his electric bill, again, the utilities can notify me of that effect. Now, I can go confront that tenant, you know, and say, you gotta pay your electric. Now, he could be paying his rent and not paying the utility bill, but the utility's gonna know me when he gets in arrears. They're gonna notify me as a landlord. Now, I can go to that tenant and say, you gotta pay your utility bill, or you gotta move, one or the other. If he moves, let's say he does move, and he's got a utility bill that's in arrear for 2 months, and he doesn't pay it, who's gonna get stuck with it? Me. And if I don't pay it, my credit rating is gonna go down. because you can't go after that tenant unless you go the route of uncollectible accounts like we've been doing.
Mr. McKinnon, you want to make a comment?
Under current law, you directed us to look through the accounts and look at the delinquents and make an assessment of writing those off and bring those to you. I can't change that unilaterally. I need your approval to change them to a different method. And until this council decides to do a different method, such as using the property tax method to collect the delinquent or unpaid bills, we're not going to do it. So your discussion here kind of baffles me a little bit. We're not doing it. We can't do it unless you authorize us to do it. And so that decision rests here at this body. At some point in time, if this council body decides that they want to use this property tax method, you need to be imposed in this resolution. They're imposed as Assembly Bill 182 today, because you won't have that option in the future. Thank you.
Alder Faller?
Well, don't most landlords require a deposit, a month, 2 months rent? And isn't it their responsibility to run credit checks before they let somebody rent?
Right, yeah.
Well, then if they accept their bad credit where they may have left unpaid utilities in other jurisdictions, then I guess it's their can of worms. But can't they take it out of the deposit?
Well, sure they could, depending on how far behind they get. You've seen our kind of collectible accounts. You've got some people on there that have got 3 or 4 down the line. They've been disconnected, reconnected, disconnected, reconnected, and you still got these bills out there. Because in the wintertime, you have to connect them. That's public service.
I would ask for a clarification, Mr. McKinnon. Currently, we do not charge those unpaid bills to the landlord. We write them off.
You do not charge the tenants unpaid land bills
To the landlord.
landlords.
Correct. So it is our practice, council approved policy at utilities, that unpaid utility bill does not go on the landlord at this time. We would have to change that process.
The council would have to change that process.
Correct. So, Mr. Lottie, they're not being added on to the landlord at this time. Okay, just a clarification there.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, we should have known that ahead of time then, because we could have directed John to start putting this up. We've been for years and years now not putting this on uncollectible accounts. Now, if we had this option, why weren't we using it? Why didn't it come to this council and say, you have this option, why don't you take it? We wouldn't have had all these uncollectible accounts. We could have put it on the landlord. It never came to us. Now, most of the people that have been on this council for years know this. It never was proposed to us that we had this option that we could collect it on the landlord. So,
I think there's many business reasons why that might be the case, but we're not discussing that. Attorney Fever.
I think it would be a good item to have on the next council agenda. I think that tonight the focus is, are you supporting this resolution or not? And certainly if you want to have a discussion on what the city's policy is as far as the collection of these unpaid bills, I think it's a good discussion to have, and we should put it on the next council agenda. But I think as of now, your utilities manager is looking for some direction on this resolution.
Alderman Faller, one more comment?
Well, suppose the delinquent account is a homeowner, then why shouldn't we put it on their tax bill? So if they're going to sell, that we at least recover that money.
Homeowner's fine.
So that leaves us the option, if we don't oppose this bill, then we don't have that latitude at any time. I mean, the utility here could say, okay, if you're a homeowner and you're selling your house and now you don't pay your electric bill for 3-4 months, you just go away and we'll forget about it.
if I may respond, if you look at our uncollectible accounts over a period of months and years, you'll find that there are very, very few homeowners in there, very few. It's minimal. It's mostly tenants, city and rural. That's where most of your uncollectible accounts come. And when you go the uncollectible account route, that shows up on that person's credit rating. That goes in their credit rating when it goes to a collection agency. And that gives them an incentive to pay their bill. If they're not going to get it on their collection agency, What incentive do you even have to pay your bill?
Can we refer this to the utilities committee, because I think there's like 4 or 5 possible options on how we can address this, and we could have John, give us a,
You want to make that motion, refer it, I'll
Well, I don't
withdraw
want,
my
I don't think
motion.
we need to refer this, though. I think
I
it's
say, you
either,
want to make a motion to refer this thing to the utility commission, I'll withdraw my motion.
No, I don't think that's what Alderperson Jarvis is saying.
no,
I-
I'm
I-
saying that your discussions could
We
be better
can have
merited,
further
and
discussion
we could
there
create a
on
new
policy.
policy for the city. Yeah.
Well, once
Any
you,
other,
On the floor.
there is a
Deny
motion
this.
on the floor to deny this.
right,
Any other comment on the motion to deny? Clerk will call the roll on motion to deny this resolution. Everybody understand that? Okay.
It's tough, but we
Sedlacek,
No.
Lottie,
yes.
Fernsler,
Yes.
Riley, Fowler,
No.
Anderson,
Yes.
Hanson,
No.
Jarvis.
No.
4 noes, 3 yeses.
Alder Riley had to excuse himself for a moment. Procedure question. Never mind. We'll reread the motion and without tallying, ask Alder Riley to vote. Clerk Huberty, will you read the motion back for Alder Riley?
The motion is to deny approving the resolution. Or not approve the resolution, I guess is it.
Not approve the
Not approve the resolution in opposition to Bill 132.
Yes.
That's a 4-4 tie.
4-4 tie.
And the mayor will vote with the noes in this case and defeat the motion to oppose Resolution 182 or Resolution 27. Now, I would therefore entertain a motion to approve the Resolution 27.
So moved.
Second, Alder Jarvis.
We have a first and a second to approve Resolution 27 as discussed. We still have more discussion if you want it. Clerk will call the roll on approving the motion this time.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Fernsler,
No.
Anderson.
No.
Lottie,
No.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Riley.
No.
Once again, I will approve in the affirmative the motion to support Resolution 27. Good discussion, thank you. Moving on, and that we can have discussion at finance or utility. I think that's appropriate.
Yep.
Thank you. Item 6, presentation and update on the Plymouth Adult Community Center, Director Yurgis.
All of you should have a number of items. The main document that I want you to look at is this Plymouth Adult Community Center status report. Also in your packet with some financial information. The 3 options that I previously proposed if we staff the center in-house, as well as a summary of what our expenses are or were for the 2010 budget going forward to the 2012 approved budget, as well as what the PIC proposal for 2012 is. Under the other item is a draft of the agreement. There was an updated agreement that was sent out. It was version 4. More specifically, that is for potentially item number 7, so I'm not going to be discussing that at this point. But I prepared a little presentation or outline for you to try and summarize where we are. And I'm just going to go over this quickly. But why is this important in terms of the senior center, as well as the Generations building? A recent study that was completed by a foundation suggested that there's a number of things that create attachment, community attachment for residents to attach to their community. One of those things includes social offerings and openness. And with community attachment, there was a correlation with attachment and local economic growth. So the bottom line is this is part of our quality of life in Plymouth, the senior center, as well as the Generations building. On page number 4, just highlight around the edges of that diagram the 5 things that impact community attachment. But then in the middle you have the PIC building, and on the outside you have all of those things, the PAC, a youth center or YMCA, farmers market, single family housing, senior housing. The point I want to make there is that the Generations building can be more than just this single building, that eventually it could be an anchor for an actual neighborhood in that area. So that's just some broad level perspective that this building is, and this whole thing can be much larger than what it is today as well. The introduction, really what we're here to talk about again tonight is to approve a staffing and management plan for the Plymouth Adult Community Center. That's the objective. The outcome is really a strategic decision by the Common Council to allow the PAC programming to move forward. And I just have a little note that feedback, I'm looking for some feedback. If there's no decision tonight, I would like some indication as how you would like to continue the discussion. We've discussed this at a variety of meetings, and this is basically a summary as to where we are tonight, but I would be looking for feedback if the council decides to take no action tonight as to how you would like to proceed with the discussion. On page 6, timeline, how did we get here? In August 2010, the city signed a lease agreement to be part of PIC. Between August 2010 and March 2011, really the city staff planned for moving to the new building. I would say that there wasn't a lot of program development during that period. The thought behind it was let's move to the new building and then decide what kind of programming we might want to do from a city perspective. In March, our previous director left, and as a result, we brought in someone from the Family Resource Center to provide some interim staffing and management of the center to help us out for a short period of time. During that period, as well as being down there early on for the first month, I realized that it is my opinion that a full-time director is not warranted or needed based on the current programming that was in place. Obviously, the Committee on Aging maintained that a full-time director was needed, and there really wasn't an interest to look at other alternatives to that arrangement. In August, September of 2011, after talking with a variety of organizations, PIC, the county, the YMCA, there seemed to be an interest level as to potential partnerships. And so at that time I issued an RFP, and that was also provided to the Committee on Aging. The RFP process went forward, and PIC was the only organization that submitted a formal proposal. Originally I was expecting at least 3 written proposals, but only 1 was received. After that, or before that, I also devised various options, which is that option 1, 2, and 3, as to what various staffing models could look like if we kept it in-house and did not contract or partner with an outside organization. And so I provided that to the Finance and Personnel Committee as an option. After the RFP process was closed and the PIC proposal was received, at that point, late in the process, the Committee on Aging then supported option 3, which I previously provided, and that was to support a part-time coordinator or department head of that senior center as a city employee. So that's kind of the timeline of where we've been over the last few months. On page 7, I'm not going to read it in detail, but that's the existing program description or mission statement of the PAC. Below that, you have the services that we're currently providing. And I just have a question there and a question mark. When you look at the program description and mission and the services, I say, is there a disconnect between mission and services? And I would argue that currently, whether we keep it in-house or contract it out based on our mission statement, I'm not sure we're fulfilling that. Now, no matter what direction we go in, if we keep it in-house, there has to be a discussion about how we can renew that commitment to that mission statement and how we can build accountability into the program. If we contract it out, the same thing. How are we going to ensure that there's accountability into the program? Page 8 lists 1 through 8 and 9 goes through this PAC service standards, or 1 through 8. Basically, those are the standards that are currently in place today. Standard 1 talks about generally the center is open Monday through Friday from 9 to 4:30. Standard number 2 is that it's open year-round, except for certain holidays. Standard number 3, that there's active phone line at all times, that there's always going to be someone on staff. Standard number 4 talks about a monthly newsletter and calendar of events for all PAC activities. Standard number 5 on page 9 kind of outlines the different activities that we currently organize or provide for the seniors, most of them being self-led activities. We do offer some limited exercise programming currently being provided by Tanya. Standard number 6, the PAC shall be operated in a manner that meets intergenerational program requirements as approved by the Programming Committee of the Tenants. That's in there because when we agreed to be part of this, the city did agree that we would partner in intergenerational programming. That standard's in here. I don't know that we've been really successful in doing that at this point. It's obviously in limbo, and I think part of the decision has to do with the city staffing as well as whether we will be moving forward with a partnership with PIC or not. Number 7, the PAC programming shall include computer classes and or training. That was something the previous interim director started up. It was an original concept, I believe, from the previous director and Committee on Aging. And it was started with our interim director, but it's very limited now at the current time, but it is something that we previously said is something we were going to do. Standard number 8, basically it says the PIC or it could be the PAC shall report on participation in the programs, including individual activities. That no matter who does it, whether we partner with PIC or whether we keep it in-house, the point is that the council has previously wanted data as to what activities are being done and the quantity and the number of repeats. Page number 10. Currently, performance measurement. On the introduction slide, I had a question mark. Really, that's not something we do with this program overall. Throughout the city, we have focused on inputs, but the point I'm making is for the 2012 budget, our input is roughly $130,000 versus $155,000 in 2011. Our outputs, we haven't provided a lot of statistical data. That needs to be addressed regardless of whether we keep it in-house or not. And then the final point, outcomes. We really haven't been outcome focused. We haven't set standards that we're trying to achieve X, Y, or Z with our program. So it's just a point that we focus on inputs, but we really don't focus on outputs or outcomes at this point. Slide number 11, the strategic issues summary. There's 4 bullet points. Basically summarize what I've already gone over, that currently I believe there's a disconnect between the mission and the services we provide, that we don't have any performance measurement, we don't have any strategic direction or programming goals at this point. Now I point that out because regardless of who runs the center, whether that's city staff or the Committee on Aging is involved, or we contract with the YCMA or the county or whoever it is that is going to be responsible for this. Those four things are something that entity or the city would have to address to make sure that the senior center moves forward in a positive direction. I just want to point that out, that I think from a strategic perspective, those are issues about the program that we need to work on. Number 12, one of the questions that a council member asked me on page 12 is kind of, okay, what are the, besides partnering with PIC, what are the alternative service delivery options? I listed those out there for you. Keeping it in-house according to the 2012 budget. Existing staff and part-time staff, we would have 2 or 3 employees down there staying within our allocated budget for 2012. The other things, Community Ed, Sheboygan County, I have negotiated agreement, YCMA negotiated agreement, and PIC proposal from RFP or negotiated agreement. I just make those points. All of those entities, I believe, were aware of the RFP, and we only received one. So in order to go into a different service direction, other than partnering with PIC or doing it in-house, I think the only way we would get there is if we approached those organizations and had attempted to negotiate an agreement. I make that point only because we issued an RFP and we basically had one proposal. Doesn't mean we couldn't look at other ways to do it, but certainly they were welcome to submit a proposal. That didn't happen. But certainly there are other ways to look at it. Page number 13, just real quickly, acceptance review of groups. If I'm looking at it, the customer, our senior center participants, they want to maintain the exercise programming, they want to maintain a space for a senior center, and they want to minimize change. I think that's a big concern. From the Committee on Aging perspective, they want to maintain their sphere of influence over PAC. They would like to continue to be involved in some level, even if we do contract it out. They still want to be involved. And I put the status quo down there right now. I think how I would say it is because there have been a lot of changes with the Committee on Aging, people going off the committee. There's 2 open positions. I think it's a point where moving forward, the Committee on Aging will need to figure out who they are and what their role is, and try and determine some goals. The council, from a council perspective, you guys are going to have to decide, balance cost versus the services that were offered. Obviously, I've heard from most of you, if not all of you, that you've been concerned about accountability for the program. And then I put that third point down there, commitment to intergenerational programming with a question mark. I put that there because when we joined the building, we said we were going to be doing IEP programming. We haven't done a lot of that. And historically, I think the motivation was for a new building space and a new office space. I don't know that the city completely committed to the IEP perspective. And I guess that's a question as to whether the city is going to commit to that perspective, or if that's something that, with the current economic climate and how things have gone, that maybe that's not as big of a priority as the council originally thought. But that's something that you're going to have to decide. Page 14, it's a little diagram. The budget, what resources are currently available. The budget piece, I think, is done for 2012. We approved a budget which is roughly $130,000, which includes the rent. Obviously, we also have donation account funds that are available, as well as contingency, a line item if we needed it in 2012. But the budget itself has been approved and adopted. From the management and programming perspective, I just have who is going to do this. The mission and services, the goals, the outcomes. I guess that's a fundamental question for the City Council. Who's going to provide that strategic direction, and who's going to do those things? On page 15, when the RFP was issued, how I would like to define it is that it's a blend of a purchase contract and a grant. I don't think it's the same as a purchase contract like a garbage service. We know how many stops we have. We know what the exact cost is per stop. We know how many times they're going to come on a weekly basis and so forth. But it's less specific than purchase contracts about the activities that the producer is going to conduct or the amount of service that it will produce. It's not quite a grant because we do have those service standards, but I would say it's a kind of a blend of a purchase contract and a grant. And I think, I think that's important to realize that contracting it out, it will be a little bit different. The scope of services, again, was outlined in general terms. We haven't listed any lofty goals. So page 16 is basically the big summary as to where we've been, where we've discussed this issue, and the fundamental question, I guess, is who's going to determine the long-term service standards of the senior center, who's going to provide the strategic direction, and who's going to determine what the program goals are. And I just pause there because I don't know that there's agreement on that, but I don't know that those things are being done right now. And whether we keep it in-house or we contract it out, those things have to be done. If they're not done, I'm not certain why we would fund a senior center, because I'm not sure we exactly know where we're going from here. Bullet points under that, the next phases. The first one, continue discussion on service delivery options or execute agreement with PIC. That agreement is on the agenda tonight for consideration. If reviewing service delivery options, I guess if that's the direction the council wants to go, the Finance and Personnel Committee is going to have to begin meeting to discuss that, service standards, program goals, and strategic direction, and that's going to take a lengthy process. If we do that, I don't think we can continue to operate with the 2 part-time people that are down there. I think we need to bring additional resources to assist with it on an interim basis again. And then eventually what we need to do is approve a staffing plan for the senior center and or a professional services agreement to implement the program. That's the summary that I could come up with how to portray it to the council tonight. That's what I have to share with you. There is an agreement. Number 7 is the potential agreement to approve the agreement. That should have been handed out to all of you. It should say version 4 at the bottom. Can I borrow that? Not version 3. And the big thing is on page 3 of 8. Underneath responsibilities of the city, it outlines the compensation that would be paid to PIC. In addition, it provides a one-time payment in the amount of $10,000 for additional program development. And the agreement, on page 4, it clearly says that the Common Council would approve one city representative to serve on the PIC Senior Advisory Committee or similarly named advisory committee. Such advisory committee is a committee established by the PIC and is not a city committee. It outlines that. That was part of the proposal that PIC provided, that they would be establishing their own advisory committee. So those were the changes that were made from the last time you saw the agreement. Again, if you go at the very back, Exhibit B, PAC service level standards, that's just a summary of those standards 1 through 8, which we previously have reviewed.
Thank you, Director Jurgis. This is item 6. Any questions in what Director Jurgis has presented and in discussion points on that? If Alderperson Jarvis.
I just wanted to thank Brian. I thought this was a really good example of how we should be looking at any new programs or directions or, the direction of the city. I think this was really a good example of laying out the objectives of a program and going forward and how we analyze moving forward on things.
Alder Fowler, I'm sorry, Fernsberg.
Oh, we on 6 or 7?
6.
I have no-
Okay. Alderman Slachek.
On page 3, the responsibility of the city, this dollar amount of $6,125,
That would be item number 7, so unless,
Oh, I'm sorry.
if we're not moving to that, then I guess stick to number 6. But
Right.
if the council's ready to move to number 7, I guess.
Alderman Fernsberg.
We're moving to number 7.
We're still on 6 yet. If there's any more comments for 6. Okay, good. Thank you. We're moving to item 7, discussion and possible action on staffing at the Plymouth Adult Community Center. We just heard the discussion on that. Alderman Fernsberg, you had your hand up first.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we sign the contract with PIC to run the senior center.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Slachek.
On page 3, responsibilities of the city,
Right, now we're on that, correct.
the $6,125, that's not including the rent, correct?
Yeah, that comes out to 73.5 a year. That does not include rent.
Okay, and then
And
okay.
the one time, the original proposal was, I believe, 83.5,
So that's the amount we're going to pay for PIC to run it.
plus the one-time payment of
Right.
10.
Right, okay,
But that does not include rent.
right.
Alderperson Jarvis.
Part of the existing ACA.
I'm not in favor of contracting with PIC at this time. Some of the reasons why I've gone and looked at this for some time, I've been thinking about it, and I go back to the beginning, where there were several of the members of this council who questioned the level of service. That what were we getting the adequate services at our senior center based on the costs that we were providing for those services? And there were some questions on quality, there were some questions on level of service. And I think that we can look at that and address it in different ways. One of them is going through PIC to contract and have them run the senior center, or we have the option of doing it through the city. And I believe that on a financial basis, that it would be better to take the step of having the city undertake this first. And if it doesn't work, then we can go to PIC. I think going the other way, having PIC do it, I think that the commingling of those two organizations will be very hard to undo. I think that looking at PIC's budget, I looked at it very carefully. I worked backwards, and I compared to other nonprofit organizations, and I think that the costs for what they described was excessive compared to what other nonprofit wages are in the area. And I believe that it's not a good decision on the behalf of this council to not give due diligence to this and have the city's employees undertake this. I would be in favor of the part-time coordinator, not the full-time coordinator, because we've heard from Brian that he doesn't really think, after assessing what was going on there, that we necessarily need to have a full-time director. I think PIC is a relatively new organization. I believe that they still are working out some kinks in the management of the building. I'm not knocking that their quality of service. I'm not judging their quality of service of their current facilities. What I am saying is that they don't have any prior experience in managing a senior center. And coupled with it being PIC being a new organization and having to work out this new facility, I think that those two responsibilities are too great for such a new organization to undertake. I also think that in a time of budget constraints, that the city came forward and participated in this project a number of years ago and agreed to. We are paying more in rent than we used to, and I think that we have come to the table to support PIC, so I don't think that us not contracting with PIC is any indication that we are not supportive of the organization. After looking at Director Jurgis's presentation, I'm a little worried about the commingling of the missions of these two organizations, that maybe keeping them separate is a better idea. And I do have some concerns about where I understand that many of us at this table are part of a lot of community organizations in the community and their leaders, and I respect that. But I think that for me, in asking people out in the community, if there is a conflict of interest or a perception of conflict of interest, that any alderperson that may have that situation, they should be abstaining from this vote. I know that I personally, if I had a family member working for PIC, I would not be voting on this matter. Those are my thoughts on this, and I would hope that the rest of you have thought carefully and would present your positions and vote against the PIC proposal at this time.
I would like to ask Attorney Feber to address one comment that Alder Jarvis made, so it's fresh in everybody's mind. I requested an opinion of the city attorney about 2 months ago, and I would ask that the city attorney comment on that specific point.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. And just so the council is aware, whenever you request an ethical opinion or a conflict of interest opinion from the city attorney, that remains between the person who requested it and me, unless that person asks that it be shared, and that's pursuant to your code. So that's why the rest of you aren't aware that this had been requested. But so I have reviewed the situation, and Mayor, unless you have any objection, I'll just kind of walk through what the situation is. I don't know that everyone is aware.
I would appreciate the information that you share with the council, yes.
Okay. For those of you who don't know, Alderperson Fernsler's granddaughter, I believe it is a part-time employee of PIC. And so the mayor had requested an ethics opinion as far as if there was some conflict of interest there. I did review the issue, and I've concluded that there is not a legal conflict of interest. Alderperson Fernsler does not receive any money from his granddaughter's employment. It is a family member, but it's not an immediate family member. It's not his wife, so there's not some support there that he's actually benefiting from any income she may earn. And so in a technical sense, there is no conflict. He's not required to abstain. Of course, as we know, any alderperson who wants to abstain on an issue may. So certainly if Alderperson Fernsler does not want to vote on this issue, there's no requirement that he do so.
I would ask the city attorney to comment on the second request that I asked you to look into a conflict of interest pertaining to myself in this case.
Okay. The second conflict of interest was in regards to whether the mayor had a conflict of interest because of his wife's role as a committee on aging member. And again, there's not a conflict of interest there from a legal perspective that would preclude the mayor, in this case if there was a tie vote, from casting a vote on that issue.
Thank you for the clarification. Alderman Lottie.
You know, when the city of Plymouth decided to go with the PIC organization and move our senior center, we didn't put our foot in the door. We jumped in with both feet. PIC would have not got the grant if they wouldn't have came through the city to get it, you know. They would have not gone ahead if we wouldn't have promised or agreed to rent the space from them. So I'm saying, you know, to try and separate these organizations, this was the whole concept behind intergenerational, was commingling all this stuff. And now we want to, I don't want to separate it. We're going backwards. Why do we get involved? If we don't want to commingle with the intergenerational center, we never should have got involved with the grant. We never should have said we'd rent the space. We could have stayed where we were. If we wanted to be a complete separate entity from the intergenerational center, then I think we should have stayed where we were. You know, that's why I think PIC should run it. And I don't want to go through the process of having more city employees there, continuing conflict, and Brian becomes a referee, our director of city service becomes a referee. We're paying him good money, not to referee the senior center. People arguing back and forth for minor things. It's nothing serious going on. It's all little minor things that can be resolved if somebody just takes initiative. If something needs to be done, do it. Don't right away start complaining about it off to the council members or whoever. That's just my opinion on it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Alderman Fernsler and then Alderman Sizlacek.
He's talking to you.
I'm sorry. I got you mixed up twice tonight.
That's okay, Fred.
Alderman Fowler, my apology.
Well, I agree with Alderman Fernsler and Alderman Lottie that it should be turned over to PIC. I do not agree with giving them this $10,000 for additional program development. I think it's unnecessary, and I think that we could monitor it through a committee of 2 aldermen to meet with the PIC employees and the management on a monthly basis and report back to council. And I do not think the Committee on Aging should be involved at all. That is my position.
Alderman Sizlacek.
On the back of the contract is the Plymouth Adult Community Center service level standards. Those standards are to be fulfilled by whoever runs it.
Those, you're directing that at me.
Yes, yes.
The standards 1 through 8 is basically, in looking at what we're currently doing, that's the best I could come up with in terms of articulating what our current level of standard is for the services that are provided.
Right.
So at a minimum, those are the things that we do now, so anyone that provides that service is at a minimum, that's what they need to do. Now, obviously that entity, if another entity takes it over, they can obviously, the same dollar amount, exceed those standards or whatever, but as long as they're, at a minimum, they're meeting those 8 standards. That's the minimum criteria.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Lottie.
if I may again, when you think about it, turning it over to PIC, it's to their advantage to make sure the thing operates smoothly and runs good. Otherwise you run into trouble. Seniors are complaining and that. And would this council, with another year and a half to go on a contract, would we step out of that building? I got my doubts. I don't think you'd be able to live in this community if you walked away from that thing. Like I say, we jumped in with both feet and we're stuck in there. And it's the PIC's advantage to make sure we stay there. So their objective is to do more programming and get it running smoothly without a lot of bickering and getting Brian involved. I don't think Brian needs to be involved in that thing. That's my personal feeling. Thank you.
Any other comments? Alderman Hanson and then Alder Jarvis again.
Well, I have concerns, I guess, about, if we go with the PIC, are we jumping in again on something without the thought process of it? Though I do understand and agree with some of the concerns of the other alder here. So my question is, should we wait and try it with the director and hire a part-time director in this situation here? And that's my leaning in that particular direction. I'm not saying we have to have 70 hours like we have in the past. We could have 50 hours, a 30-hour for a director, 20 hours for a part-time person. I do not believe our director of city services should be involved in it, but he's going to be involved in it either way for a while. So I guess I just believe that not jumping in and go on that basis.
Alder Jarvis.
Yeah. First of all, Director Yergis has to be involved with this. There's city funds there. It's not like he's going to wash his hands clean of this and say, okay, PIC is going to handle everything. That would be a mismanagement on our part. Secondly, I think that if it comes to this where PIC has this first shot at the management of the senior center and it doesn't go well, and if we would try to entertain leaving that agreement, I think it would damage the reputation of PIC. So that's why I think it's important to try to do it with a part-time coordinator at a lesser cost and attempt to do that first. And then if it just doesn't seem like we're getting improvements in the quality of service, if we're not getting enough increase in the number of seniors down there, then it's easier for us to make that change to a different manager of the adult center.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Lottie.
You know, Alderperson Jarvis, I can agree with you on one thing, but if you would say we'll make Pick look bad, how would it make the city look if we got into it? And then 6 months from now, we're in a program, and a year and a half from now, we're gonna say, we're out, we're gonna get rid of all our people we got here, and we're gonna go with Pick or another organization that wants to do it.
Is that what you're doing now?
No, right now. The thing is, I can see Brian, because it's a city function, spending city funds, Brian will get involved somewhat. He doesn't get involved with the garbage collections, he doesn't get involved with the assessor and that. You know, that's contracted service too, he doesn't do that kind of stuff. Here, right now, on a day-to-day basis, I almost bet once or twice a week, he has to referee something going on down at the senior center, and I don't believe that's his job, you know?
Alder Hanson.
I don't believe we have a director to take the front so he doesn't have to deal with it. But one question I do have is that if we vote for this and it passes, or we vote for it and it doesn't pass, we have to make sure we have a message sent and what's going to take place. If it doesn't pass, does that mean the city's going to take it? If it does pass, obviously the PIC will take it. But we need to make a decision tonight on that. And that's one thing that I hope we all agree on.
Alderman Anderson.
I agree with Alder Hanson. We cannot stay in limbo. We've been in limbo too long on this project. We have to make a decision tonight.
I would ask a question of Director Jurgis. In your opinion, if we go with PIC, are we then assuming that the Committee on Aging is not needed anymore, and to address Alderman Faller's comment that two alders would then be kind of an oversight in place of, it would sound like, Committee on Aging, right, and be directly responsible to the council. Am I interpreting the discussion correctly?
I mean, I can make a couple comments. One, the current agreement, says that there'll be at least one city representative serving on the PIC's advisory committee. As part of the RFP response, PIC said that they would be creating an advisory committee of professionals and experts on senior aging issues that would serve on a committee and provide some input as to how the center would be managed. So we would have, at a minimum, one person, a city representative, serve on that committee. That is a PIC committee, but it would almost be like the liaison now. Certainly, I would guess that if the council wanted to have two representatives, city representatives, serve on their advisory committee, I'm certain PIC would say, the more the merrier. That's not a problem. You know, I don't see that as an issue. I will say, though, that you know, I don't think you can, based on the history of how PIC has worked, or how the Committee on Aging and PIC has worked together. I don't see the city entering into an agreement with PIC and then telling PIC that, oh, you have to report directly to the Committee on Aging. I don't see how that's going to work at all at this point in time, because I believe that there will be inherent conflict there. And the example that I previously shared with you is if our service standards, number 1 through 8, read them, they're pretty general, and we don't like how someone's doing something else, and the service standard really doesn't provide specific guidance on that, and then the Committee on Aging says, well, we don't like the way you're doing that, we're going to recommend you not do it that way, and then PIC says, thank you, but we're still going to do it this way. Where's that going to come? Is that then going to come to the council, and we're going to have these big discussions about where a desk goes or whether a window goes in or not? I just don't see that as being productive or being very efficient. So from that perspective, if the city contracts with PIC, I'll be completely honest, I don't see a huge role for the Committee on Aging in terms of providing day-to-day advice to them. Now, certainly, the Committee on Aging could still deal with other aging issues. There's a transportation issue that's out there, or certainly the council could say, we're going to appoint, if we're going to have 2 representatives, certainly, you could say, well, we're going to appoint one of the Committee on Aging members to be a representative besides a council member. Certainly, you could do that. But in terms of PIC directly reporting to the Committee on Aging, I don't see how that could possibly work at the given point in time.
Thank you. I would clarify that the term of this contract, as in item 9 on page 6 of 8, is from period of signing to May 1, 2013, which coincides with the current lease agreement. Alder Fowler, one more question, and we'll call the roll.
Well, one advantage I see with PIC running it is there's a couple hours midday that the county serves meals over there, and we would still have, if the city ran it, we'd still have to staff that to answer phones and stuff. I think that if PIC was doing it, they would already have somebody there that could answer phones for several of the agencies there during that period. And we do have the option to walk away in 120 days. So, I mean, I think PIC is going to step up to the plate and do a good job.
Clerk will call the roll, please.
Motion, please.
Motion made by Fernsler and Lottie to approve a contract with PIC. Riley,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Jarvis,
No.
Lottie,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanson,
No.
Sedlacek,
No.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-3. Thank you very much. Good discussion. Next item on the agenda is item 8. Approved purchase of 2 police Ford Interceptor squad cars from Mike Burkhart Ford Mercury for the total amount of $41,190. We have a information sheet presented to us by the chief, and I would entertain a motion to approve so we can discuss.
So moved, Alder Anderson.
Second, Alder Lottie.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Hanson.
Yes.
Jarvis,
Yes.
Sedlacek,
Yes.
Lottie,
Yes.
Fernsler,
Yes.
Riley, Fowler,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Item 8, that was item 8. Okay, check that one off, Don. Item 9, approve 2012-13 election officials as listed. Per Kirk Huberty, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the election official list.
So moved, Alder Anderson.
Second, Alder Riley.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 10, accept resignation of Sandy Hendrickson from the Committee on Aging. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the acceptance.
So move, Alder Lottie.
Second, Sedlacek.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 11, approve request from Plymouth High School for the exclusive use of the entire upper portion of City Park on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, June 1, 2, and 3 of 2012. Is that correct?
It should be 2012.
2012, yes.
2012, thank you.
So move, Alder Hanson.
For the graduation rehearsal and ceremony.
Second, Alder Riley.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Hans, Lottie.
Alderman Hanson, do you have a rain date?
Inside.
Okay, all right.
Inside.
Thank you.
It's not that I know anymore.
It's always inside.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Point of order, I would ask my expert on procedure. We have an absent alderperson. Unless we note that it's not unanimous, we should note a no vote. So we should roll call that instead? No? We're okay there? Just note it?
I've noted it.
Okay,
yeah.
that's fine. Thank you. Item 12, approved change of agent for Pick and Save as previously approved by Chief Telschek. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Alderson Vlacek.
Second, Riley.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Approved 2011-12 tavern operator licenses as indicated, previously approved by Chief Telschek. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Alder Anderson.
Second, Riley.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 14, approved treasurer's report and authorized payment of October vouchers. Clerk Huberty, would you read the treasurer's report, please?
For the month of November, the City of Plymouth balance on October 31st was $22,843.48. Receipts, $1,338,403.58. Disbursements, $1,344,827.68, bringing us to a balance on November 30th of $16,419.38. The Plymouth Utilities balance on October 31st was $63.98. Receipts, $4,183,853.87. Disbursements, $4,183,837.99, bringing their balance on November 30th to $79.86.
Thank you. The Chair will entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report and authorize payment of October vouchers as read.
So move, Alder Lottie.
Second, Alderman Riley.
First and a second. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Anderson?
Yes.
Riley?
Yes.
Lottie?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
Fernsler?
Yes.
Sedlacek?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Item 15, other business. Item A, building report for November 2011. 32 permits issued with an estimated total of $148,462.67. Item B, November reports acknowledged for filing. Clerk's report, DPW, Fire Department, Library Director, Police Department. Item C, minutes acknowledged for filing. Library Board, November 7th. Public Works and Utility Committee, November 29th. Plan Commission, December 1st. Finance and Personnel, December 5th. The mayor would like to, on behalf of the council, wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And we'll see you next year. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn until January 10th, 2012 at 8 o'clock p.m.
So moved.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?